The House Committee on Natural Resources and Tourism will come to order. Would the clerk please read the letter from the speaker?
Dear Mr. Clerk, I appoint the following members of the 103rd Legislature to the following standing committee: Natural Resources and Tourism. Representatives Martin, Chair; St. Germain, Vice Chair; Vanderwall, Outman, Hoadley, Johnson, Preston, Bonack, Fairbairn, Wirtz, McFall, Minority Vice Chair; Scott, Weiss, Arbit, Foreman, Myers-Phillips, and Wooden.
Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Martin.
Here.
Representative St. Germain.
Here.
Vanderwall.
Present.
Outman.
Here.
Hoadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Bonack.
Here.
Fairbairn.
Here.
Wirtz.
Here.
McFall.
Here.
Scott.
Present.
Weiss.
Here.
Arbit. Foreman.
Here.
Myers-Phillips.
Here.
Wooden.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum.
The House Natural Resources Committee will follow the committee rules as prescribed in Chapter 4 of the House Rules. I have a proposed committee rule I'm offering, which is before the committee members. This would specify the testimony before the committee as at the discretion of the committee chair. Representative St. Germain moves to adopt the proposed committee rule. Would the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to adopt, Chair Martin.
Yes.
St. Germain.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Outman.
Yes.
Hoadley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Bonack.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Wirtz.
Yes.
McFall.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Arbit. Foreman.
Yes.
Myers-Phillips.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 16 yeas, no nays, and no pass. The motion does prevail.
The proposed rule has been adopted. Representative McFall moves to adopt room 519 of the Anderson House building on Wednesdays at noon as the normal day, time, and location for meetings of the House Natural Resource and Tourism Committee. Will the clerk please take the roll?
On the motion to adopt, Chair Martin.
Yes.
Representative St. Germain.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Outman.
Yes.
Hoadley.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Bonack.
Yes.
Fairbairn.
Yes.
Wirtz.
Yes.
McFall.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Weiss.
Yes.
Arbit.
Yes.
Foreman.
Yes.
Myers-Phillips.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, no nays, and no pass. The motion does prevail.
The date, time, and location has been adopted. We're going to take time to give introductions to the committee members. So I think I allowed committee members to notify them that they're going to do this. I'm going to, I have a long list of things I'd like to, give my background for. I'm going to condense it. Just the fact that I was a county commissioner in Genesee County, and as a county commissioner, I was on the Parks Commission. We have 11,000 acres of parks in Genesee County. We now have the new Flint State Park coming along, which I was instrumental in getting the funding for. As far as tourism go, certified tourism ambassador, and I was also on the Economic Development Corporation of Genesee County. So pretty good, robust background for this, as well as being a member of the Natural Resources Committee on every term I've been on. So this is my third term. It's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to be working with people, getting things done to really enhance the state of Michigan. I found out that anytime I can get somebody to the state of Michigan, whether it's for business or for tourism, they stay, or they want to stay. And that's what I'm trying to work for. I want people to live, work, and retire in the state of Michigan, and I look forward for this committee to have a big part in that. Vice Chair St. Germain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I represent the 62nd District, which is Harrison Township, also known as Boat Town, USA, the only one in the world, I might add. St. Clair Shores, Chesterfield, so a lot of the shoreline. Clinton Township, Roseville, and Olive Fraser. I'm a huge outdoor activity person. I don't want to make Rep Vanderwall jealous, but just got off the snowmobile trails and about 2 feet of snow this weekend. Snowmobiling. I just know how important our tourism dollars are to not just my district, but all of Michigan. So I'm honored to serve on this committee. Thank you.
And thank you, Democrat Vice Chair McFall.
Thank you, Chair. I represent House District 14, which is I live in an older inner ring suburb of Detroit called Hazel Park. So it includes Hazel Park, Madison Heights, part of Warren and Centerline. But I did grow up in a family that's very outdoors, actually in Martin's district, Rep. Martin's district, Burton. My parents still live there. Big hunting family, big outdoors family. So I'm also looking forward to working together to attract more people to our state. And I think the way to do that is through our natural resources. So thank you.
And our senior legislator, Representative Vanderwall.
Senior, that hurts, I tell you, but oh well. Representative Kurt Vanderwall, I live in Ludington, Michigan. I represent the 102nd District, which is, I'd say Whitehall, just south of Whitehall, but most people know where Whitehall is, up to just north of Manistee, the casino in Manistee. Great Lake Shore, lots of inland lakes, great opportunities to enjoy the outdoors and the hunting world. And I have a family that is avid hunters, so it's really a big part of our life, and we look forward to working with everybody to make sure that we continue to push Michigan forward and use our natural resources uniquely to grow our state. Thank you.
And thank you, Representative Altman, and it's a pleasure to see you on the top tier of this committee room.
Likewise, Mr. Chair. Representative Pat Altman, I represent the 91st District. That's mostly mid-Michigan. I'm an avid outdoorsman and hunter, and my goal on this committee is to preserve conservation and our natural resources for future generations.
And Representative Hoadley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Hoadley, I represent the 99th District. That is Aranac County, Iosco County, Gladwin County, Ogama County, the three most northern townships of Bay County, and the four most eastern townships of Clare County. Without getting into a deep resume here, I did work in the hunting and outdoor industry for over 30 years, and I'm looking forward to fostering good policies that preserve our natural resources, as well as put emphasis on our public access points, and pretty much continuing on with making Michigan a great place to work, live, and raise your family. Thank you.
And thank you. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm from the 78th District. That's parts of four counties between Lansing and Grand Rapids. It's rural, it's ag, it's beautiful. And I previously served on the Parks and Rec Commission in Eaton County several years ago. And I love going to California, where my daughter lives, and bragging about Michigan. We've got water, we've got beaches, no dangerous sharks and things that come with salt water. I brag about it everywhere we go. Just got back from a trip in Texas. I say we've got an ocean also. It's called Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and we did a little test with the kids there on what are the 5 Great Lakes. And everywhere we go, we get to brag about our natural resources. We have more water than anyone else. We need to protect it. We need to protect our farmland. And you can see I'm very enthusiastic about it, and I love hunting and fishing. I'm happy to test out any part of this state with the tourism as well. Thanks. I'm honored to be on this committee with everyone else here.
And thank you. Representative Preston.
Dave Preston here, represent the 108th District, 6 counties, Menominee Delta, Schoolcraft, Luce, and the western halves of Mackinac, Chippewa. Represent 2 shorelines, southern shore of Lake Superior on the east, and a ton of Lake Michigan. Live in Cedar River. Had a business in Cedar River that has a big campground, Wells Park, and a marina there. Big Forest Island State Forest there, which has a primitive campground, a big equestrian trail system that we're looking to maintain and keep going. And, the 10 years that I operated the the Plaza, which is a restaurant, truck stop, C-store. It was kind of like a one-size-fits-all for the community. You really, when you live that remote and operate a business that remote, you begin to develop a relationship with the land because there's so many uses around us, between fishing, hunting, ATVing, snowmobiling, you name it, ice fishing. You know, I'm on the fire department as well as EMS, so you know, you really see the resource and the land at work, a front row seat, working that for 10 years. Very passionate about this committee. Second time on this. Last time it was myself and Rep. Martin. So look forward to productive stuff going forward, and look forward to working with y'all. Bye.
Thank you. And we'll hear from Rep. Bonak, who I mentioned is one of the two weathermen on this committee. I was an Air Force meteorologist for 20 years, and we have the TV man from the UP.
Thank you. I worked in television for over 30 years, broadcasting the weather in the beautiful central Upper Peninsula. And I'm newly elected. I represent Baraga, Marquette, Alger, and much of Dickinson County. And I'm very grateful to be on this committee because, of course, the UP has great natural resources, abundant natural resources, and we also have lots of opportunity for tourism. So I'm hoping to be able to influence policy in that regard.
Hi, everyone.
Fairbairn.
Parker Fairbairn, a new member in the 107th district that's made up of Emmett and Charlevoix County, and then one township of Sheboygan County, and then parts of Mackinac and Chippewa County on the eastern end of the UP. I'm really excited about this committee. I mean, we're going to do our best to defend and preserve our natural resources on this committee, but also the tourism aspect of it we can't forget about on this committee. And I think of my friends on Mackinac Island and the Sioux. I mean, we've got some of my district, and I don't mean to brag on it, is one of the best in terms of natural resources and tourism. So really looking to be on this committee, and I would like to offer to any of the members on this committee, if you ever want to come up to the 107th district, hunt, fish, my family and I would love to take you out and show you what we have to offer up there in the 107th. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wirtz.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as the Chair said, I'm Representative Wirtz, and I hail from the total opposite state of my counterparts here. I'm the 35th district, which is at the bottom of the state. Branch and Hillsdale counties in the city of Hudson. Prior to being elected to the legislature, I served as the conservation district manager in Branch County. My background is in agriculture. I received a degree from Michigan State in agriculture communications, and we also own a farm, our family, and operate that. And then I homeschooled for 13 years and raised 4 children. And so I can tell you where there's every park that's free and affordable in my area. And I'm also a border district, so Indiana and Ohio also border my district. So I'm pretty familiar with what they're doing in their states, and would love to implement some of those things into the state of Michigan as well. And ultimately, my goals here are to preserve, protect, and prioritize our natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Scott.
Yes, hello. I represent House District 8, which is part of Wayne County and also Oakland County. In Oakland County, it's Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge. I grew up really spending my summers in Idlewild, Michigan, which is not far from Ludington and Baldwin, Michigan. So spent summers fishing and hiking and being part of the great outdoors. So really excited to be part of this committee. Want to continue to protect our natural resources and encourage tourism. So I'm new to the committee and happy to be here.
Thank you. Representative Weiss.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm Representative Weiss, represent House District 5, which is portions of Northwest Detroit, as well as Oak Park and Royal Oak Township. My district is right next door to Rep. Scott's district. And when you talk about tourism, you can't not talk about the city of Detroit and all of the tourism that the city of Detroit brings to the state of Michigan. Particularly between our districts, we split the Avenue of Fashion. which is a very important area in the city of Detroit with a lot of thriving majority black-owned businesses, restaurants, and want to make sure that more people know about what's going on in our districts and in Southeast Michigan, and also making sure that we're doing everything that we can to preserve and expand outdoor spaces in more urban areas in the state as well. So appreciate that we have a very wide diversity of geographical representation on this committee for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Arbit?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I represent the 20th House District, which is the greater West Bloomfield and Commerce area in Oakland County. I represent more inland lakes than any other representative in Southeast Michigan, 50, I believe. And so it's really inland lakes are the lifeblood of my community, not just in terms of outdoor recreation, but in some cases why people move to live in my community. And protecting those inland lakes, making sure that the water quality is where it needs to be. All of that is incredibly important to me. And to my constituents, and making sure that there's a good balance between local control and and the departments, which I think we can for sure talk about whether that's good right now. But I'm really excited to work on those issues and continue to protect all of our natural resources. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Foreman.
Good afternoon. I represent Michigan's 33rd House District, which is Southern Washtenaw County. And so I proudly represent Ann Arbor, which is a tourist destination. Right in my district is the Big House. So if you are a Michigan football fan, you are in my district. We also have Saline, Lodi, and Bridgewater, which are rural and very much into agriculture. I am a former zoning board member and Brownfield Commission in Washtenaw County. So protecting the environment is really important to me. So protecting our land, air, and water, and the species there in that roam, including us. I love our state parks and our old growth forest and our local parks. I'm also a sportsman as well. Here I enjoy fishing and hunting. Yeah, don't look at me like that. I do. I fish and I hunt. So I'm happy to be here and happy to learn more about my colleagues and look forward to serving the state in this way and making the beauty of the state of Michigan one of our priorities.
Thank you. And Representative Myers-Phillips.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Tanya Myers-Phillips, and I'm proud to represent Michigan's 7th House District, and that includes the central areas of the city of Detroit, Northeast Detroit, and the entire cities of Highland Park and Hamtramck. I guess parts of my origin story are my paternal grandparents were farmers in the rural South, so I spent a lot of my summers doing farm tasks, and I found it quite enjoyable. And I actually started my education, my college education, as a natural resources major at the University of Michigan. Then political science took over. But it always has had a fond place in my heart. One of the prime assets in my district, I'm proud to be able to host the parts of the Joe Louis Greenway in my district, which is pretty cool, connecting trails and parks. And there's also a tourism and economic development driver. Of course, being a lifelong City of Detroit resident, we have the Detroit River, an international city and border, and bottom line, all of us humans just need to preserve our natural resources, right? So I'm interested in just making sure that all areas of our state, we're able to steward the resources that we've really been blessed with, and that we can enjoy our air quality, our water quality, and just take good care of our resources.
Thank you. And Representative Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Stephen Wooden. I represent the 81st District, which includes Northeast Grand Rapids and some of the surrounding suburbs of Kent County. When I approach this committee, I can think of a few hats. First, I'm a father of a 3-year-old son and wants to make sure that that child can grow and thrive here in this state, and future generations can grow and thrive in this state. That means protecting our natural resources, our air and water. I also grew up in our outdoors, enjoying outdoor recreation and camping through scouting. I'm an Eagle Scout and loved spending a lot of summers both here in Michigan and in other states, camping in all varieties. And as mentioned, on top of that, I'm a Grand Rapidian. Grand Rapids, being the second city, is has become a hub for tourism. We have some amazing festivals and gatherings and locations and destinations to travel to, whether that's Art Prize, or whether that's our zoo, whether it's our Grand River Greenway, our natural trailway that can take you all the way out to the mouth of Lake Michigan. And then on top of that, I am also a former county commissioner, where we worked on a number of conservation efforts, both supporting our ag preservation, but also initiatives like the Greenway. So, pleasure to be here and looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, and you're probably looking forward to the new Captain America movie coming out.
Already watched it.
We have several, every term's going to have some freshmen on it. We have several freshmen, a lot of new members. It's a larger committee than we've had for natural resources. So first thing we're going to do is get some introductory information. We now have a presentation from the Department of Natural Resources. We have Deputy DNR Director Shannon Lott and Chris Semernick, the Legislative Liaison.
Thank you, Chair Martin, and members of the committee. My name is Chris Semernick, Legislative Liaison for the Department of Natural Resources. Very excited to work with this committee for this session. More excited to be in the big fancy committee room for once. So looking forward to a session with all of you, and I offer myself as a resource to the department for any of you if you ever have any questions or anything like that. But joined by Deputy Director Shannon Lott, who is going to walk through a lot of the many facets of our department. And I want to offer up as well, we have a lot of our chiefs and assistant chiefs of our divisions here for any division-specific questions if anyone has those. But with that, I'll pass it over to Shannon.
All right, thank you. Happy to be here, and I love the introductions. Thank you for that, so that we know who's here in the room. So I am the Natural Resource Deputy Director at DNR. We have two deputies. Kristen Phillips is behind me as the admin deputy for finance, marketing, and our history center, which I'll talk a little bit about. And then I'm the natural resource deputy. So I have forestry, fisheries, wildlife, parks, and law enforcement. So those are all the resource side of the house. We have about 1,800 employees, give or take, for permanent in our field staff and some in the Lansing office. And then we have about 1,200 seasonals a year that we hire for all of our wonderful state parks, and we do some forestry seasonals and wildlife seasonals as well. So it takes a lot in different seasons of the year to do all the work that we do. So I want to go to the mission real quick. I wanted to point out here, you've got this in front of you, so you can read any of it later if you have more questions, but this has changed, that I'm not sure if most folks know, but we redid our mission statement when a few years after we had HAL, the Histories, Arts, and Libraries. If anybody remembers HAL, that was rolled into DNR in 2009. So that's why you see the word natural and cultural now. So the History Center that you see here in Lansing and some of the other museums throughout the state are actually in our wheelhouse as well. All right, parks. I heard many of you talk about parks. We have 103 state parks here, almost 104 with Flint when that comes on board. So thank you, Chair Martin, for your work on that. It's been a really great ride, and there is some really great pictures we have if you ever want to see them of the progress there that we're making. So what I want to point out here is 36 million visitors, okay? We have the most state parks in the country. We have the most visited state park in the country, which is Belle Isle, and next to Niagara Falls, but everybody thinks that's a national park. So Belle Isle has 4.6 million visitors a year, up give or take, and we also have a huge bump since COVID. So what I want to point out here is in 2020, right before 2020, the highest visitor rate we had was 25 million. It jumped to 36 million in 2020. And that number has sustained itself. So that's one of the things that you'll hear us talk about through some of budget as well, is that we had a really hard time, keeping all campsites, cleaned and all of that, bathrooms clean, garbage is empty, getting everybody checked in, because there was just so much volume, which is great, right? We want people to be outside, but it really taxed our system. So Wanted to point that out. And then we have obviously some state harbors you'll see there, and then harbors of refuge on the Great Lakes as well. So we manage about 1,100 of those throughout the state. And then we have our vehicle registration, which I'm sure many of you know about, the recreation passport that is the access to all of these items that are on the slide as well. So that has a CPI increase built into it to help us manage these sites as infrastructure costs have really tripled since COVID. All right, fisheries. We have our fisheries chief here, Randy Claremont. Raise your hand, Randy. We have, obviously, you guys mentioned some of this, but the most fresh water in the world, right? So Great Lakes is a really big priority, obviously, for all of us here. We have 3,300 miles of shoreline, and then give or take 11,000 inland lakes. We heard about some of you have several inland lakes in your area. And then 52 miles of rivers and streams. That is huge. When you go out west, if any of you go west fishing, I fish in Montana sometimes, fly fish, they have like 3 main rivers. And it's really interesting to see the difference there than here. And I'm like, you should come to Michigan. You know, we have so many world-class fisheries on these rivers, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Fisheries leads the fight on the invasive species front, the aquatic invasive species. I'm sure many of you heard of Brandon Road Lock and Dam down by Chicago that we had money to work forward with Illinois and some of the federal partners to make sure that we don't get Asian carp in the Great Lakes. That's a big one for us. And then obviously commercial fishery, we work through that regulatory piece as well, making sure that we have all of the reporting that we need in order to manage the models we utilize for the Great Lakes. And then protecting habitat, we have the Habitat Grant Program, which is the base license that we sell. Part of that goes to wildlife habitat grants that get sent out the door, and part of that goes to fisheries habitat grants that get sent out the door. So those are grants that anybody can apply for in the local communities, and they've really been, I think, a good partnership opportunity for many of the local communities. And then we also have other partners in conservation. Obviously, we have the huge stakeholder groups, all the commercial fishing stakeholder groups, but we also have a lot of tribal stakeholders that we work with. Many of you probably know what the consent decree is. We had to rework the consent decree as it expired in 2020. Then COVID hit, took us a couple years to get through all of that, all of those hearings to have the consent decree finished. So Randy knows all about that if any of you have specific questions on that. And then we benefit all citizens. So I like that many of you said we need to protect our water because then the things that live in it, right, are important to us as well. So we also work on environmental permitting, and we work on endangered and threatened species permitting to make sure that as things are being built near water or near wetlands, that we are making sure that that impact is as low as possible to those species and to those water bodies. All right, one more fish slide here. I just want to talk about what this does for Michigan. So $3.9 billion a year in the state's economy. That's huge. I mean, that's one of the top 5 states in the United States for this type of expenditures and economics. And our 6 fish hatcheries produce about 30 million fish annually for about 1,000 locations across both peninsulas that we stock. And we have a page on our website. If you ever want to find out if the lake you live on or nearby has been stocked, you can go right to our website, type that in, and it tells you what years that's been stocked and what species are in there. Because people ask me all the time that question, and I send them to that website page so that they can look that up. And then ongoing efforts so far to prevent, like I said, the big head black and silver carp from entering the Great Lakes. That's going to be huge because many of you might have remembered some of the alewife issues that we had or other prey species. And when you lose the prey base, right, then that makes the large predators tank. And so we've had that happen sometimes in the Great Lakes, and we don't want this one here to mess up the food chain, right? So we work hard on that. All right. Wildlife management. Our wildlife chief is here, Sarah Thompson. if you have any and our assistant chief is here, Keith Kintai for wildlife. So obviously we have statutory language that requires us to maintain wildlife populations healthy and sustainable. We have the public trust doctrine, which is that everything's owned by the people of the state, but it's held in public trust for us to manage. So all of us are in that together in that public trust, and with all the partners we have too. And then we want to protect habitat for species, but also for recreation. And I heard many of you say that you hunt as well as fish and visit parks. So we really want to do both. We want to have humans fit into that realm as we manage these populations and habitat. About a little over 200 state game and wildlife areas, around 450,000 acres. We added 3 new wildlife areas in the last 5 years. In southern Michigan, we're working hard to try to acquire land where people really need access, because it's just getting so crowded on some of the other state forest lands and other things that we wanted to provide opportunities in southern Michigan for public land hunting. And then we have cooperation with private landowners as well. If they call us and want, help with a plan or help with a grant, we also do that. Our local biologists often go to several of the local meetings if they're asked to come and present on what's happening in that area. Mostly on deer, I'll be honest. People always want to hear about deer, but we'd love to talk about other things as well. And then we do a lot of public connection for people, because what we want is for them to feel like they can fit into this, but also that we need them to help in the preservation, right, and the conservation of these things. So we have a huge education and outreach arm as well for people throughout the summer, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So the recreation side, we're 7th in the nation for hunter participation in hunting-related expenditures. So that's $8.9 billion to the state's economy. And then about 35 million, people ask me this a lot too, comes through license sales through our wildlife and habitat conservation. So the wildlife part, and then I talked about those habitat grants as well through the base license. And then about 3 million people a year are wildlife watchers, right? So not everybody is a consumptive user. We have a lot of people that actually don't contribute to the conservation of these areas, but they utilize them. So you might have your bird watchers, your mushroom pickers, your kayakers, mountain bike riders, those kinds of things that like to use these areas as well. So I just wanted to point that out as well. And $1 billion to the state's economy for those non-consumptive users. All right, conservation officers, we have Assistant Chief Brandon Keefe here today. Our chief is sick at the moment, so Brandon offered to come in for him today. I just wanted him to be here as well, just so that you guys could see, if you've never seen a conservation officer or what we wear compared to some of the other branches of law enforcement, I wanted him to be here. So we patrol every county in the state of Michigan, make sure people are safe and responsible. That's usually our biggest item, is safety. I've had people call me, friends that fish, in the Muskegon River and other things, and they're like, oh, I got a ticket, can you help me? Well, what was the ticket for? No life jacket. Sorry, not helping you on that, right? Safety, that's just a really bad idea to get in your boat without a life jacket. So there's a lot of things that we just really want people to know, and we do a lot of safety events as well. So we're really critical in the rural areas of this state. So often we're first on scene for even car accidents or other emergencies. We have found several lost children in the state forest system, or in the UP, where people do get lost on occasion, and we're usually the first ones on scene for that. We have several life-saving awards that we give to officers every year that they might show up on site and do CPR and save people's lives. So we make sure to recognize that. And then from August 2023 to August 24, so that's kind of the cycle that we count contacts, we contacted about 418,000 people. And most of those, at the bottom there, shows you 98% of those interactions are for public and education reasons. So this is that's 98% of what we do is help inform people and make sure that they're being safe. And then the Report All Poaching Hotline, more than 40,000 calls by the end of November last year. So that's the bulk of the deer season, if you know, October, November, and then we have a little in December. But I've worked in there with the staff, and now you can text in, you can call in, or you can go through the website. So it's really easy to access. We have a lot of new, younger dispatchers that work in there, so they like the text option. People text pictures of what's going on, and it's a real quick way to be able to do both things at once, kind of be on the phone and work on the computer and help people faster. So that's one of the upgrades we made to their system. All right, I talked a little bit about education. So 400,000 people visit one of our visitor centers every year. So we have 11 visitor centers that we maintain. And then of those visitor centers, there's several programs that we do. So if you've ever been to one of our visitor centers, there's a board that shows what's going on for that day and what type of interpretation walks or hikes are going on. So 165,000 people attend those, which gets the word out on conservation, right? So Nature Waits, many of you might have heard this last year. This was a governor's initiative for transportation to get every fourth grader to a state park. So last year, our first year, 20,000 of them took advantage of that, of the schools that wanted to participate. So we hope to even double that this year if we can. And then 300 schools participate in Salmon in the Classroom. If you don't know what that is, they get fry from us, and they grow those to, eggs that grow into fry size, and then they release them in rivers near their school. So I've been to a couple of the releases with the students, and that program is amazing. They will tell you every stage of a salmon or trout. They are amazing, the things they learn, and they do it all by pictures. And these kids, third grade, they know every single stage. So it's really amazing. And then 500 teachers that we educate every year in professional development. So we have a week-long teacher camp basically at our RAM Center, Ralph McMillan Center. And they learn everything from how we manage fish populations, wildlife, pretty much all of our other species as well that we want young people to know about, invasive species, all of those things to put in their curriculum. So that's a big thing that we've expanded over the years as well. And then we have outdoor skills academies. So these are like events where you can sign up to learn, like if you've never bear hunted. We have a bear academy that's like a one-day course that you can take and talk all about how do you bait a bear, how do you look for bears, what habitat would you look at, what weapon would you use. So those kinds of things are really well attended also. And then Law Enforcement Division, I mentioned this on safety, but we do we manage about 1,600 volunteer safety education coordinators. If anybody's had hunter education, hopefully you've been near or around those volunteers. They're amazing, and we couldn't do this without them. And then 46,000 people earning certificates in either hunter, marine, snowmobile, or ORV safety. So a lot of times we mesh those things together on a weekend so people can kind of get all of them if they want to. So we have several events that do that as well. And then 60 hunter ed classes in the first annual Hunter Safety Education Week. So we put this together this last year in 24 we're trying to recruit as many new volunteers as we can for hunter safety, because a lot of our folks are aging out of that really had put their heart and soul into it. So we want to get even more people to keep the number of classes up there. And then we hosted our first ORV enforcement training program for state and local law enforcement officers. And that's good so that we all are managing in the same way when we're out in the forest, and how we talk to the public. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page about that. All right, public lands. So I think many of you mentioned as well the public lands that you utilize, and water, right? We have a lot of it, 3.9 million acres, we're almost up to 400 million of state forest. This is the largest state forest in the country. Okay, out west, those are all federal forests. So a lot of people are like, well, I've been out west, there's tons of forests. That's true, but that's federal forest or BLM land. This is the largest state forest in the country. So we take that very seriously, and there's about 20 million acres of forest in Michigan as a whole, if you include all the private land and then the 3 national forests that are here as well. So most people don't know that about our forest. And then we have 360,000 acres of state parks as well in that portfolio of public land, and 450,000 acres of the state game and wildlife areas I mentioned before. So that's totaling about 8 million of land open for public hunting, and we try to expand that as much as we can, like I mentioned before. And then our freshwater, we talked about the 3,300 miles of shoreline, the 11,000 inland lakes, and the 52,000 miles of world-class rivers and streams. So here's forestry, a little bit more on that. We've been certified through the Sustainable Forestry Initiative and the Forest Stewardship Council. So all of the wood that comes off of our forest is certified, which means folks in Michigan will get a higher price for that wood. So those logging companies that come in, their wood will be certified as it moves down the chain. So that's a big deal for Michigan. And then we plant about 6 million seedlings every year. And we have several partners that help with this. But this is a big deal because when people get upset on occasion when they see a timber harvest somewhere, and we get calls or letters about that, we try to say, you know, we're planting almost 2 to 1 on what we harvest. So we look at 1/10 of the state forest system every year. And that's called a compartment inventory. You guys have probably or maybe been a part of that in your districts. So we do about 1/10 a year of inventory, and then out of that come the timber sales of the species that are silviculturally ready to cut. And then the forest products industry is huge here in Michigan, $26 billion industry, over 90,000 jobs. So I work pretty closely with the forest products industry. I meet with them quarterly. And I used to be the assistant chief in forestry, and so I developed a good relationship with them on a lot of different things. We developed a new cruise model. We developed a new state forest management plan that you'll see coming out later this year, and that was in cooperation with the forest products industry. We do not want them to lose business here in Michigan. We've seen it happen already in Wisconsin or Minnesota. Your counterparts over there can tell you how many businesses they've lost. So we're trying to hang on to our forest products folks. And then firefighting. Obviously, this has been all over the news lately with the California fires, but every year there's Western fires you hear about, right? And then it's no different here as far as us needing to protect the landscape from fire. So a little between 200 to 300 fires a year we fight here in Michigan, and that is both public and private land. So we have to respond to both. And that's wildland fire. We don't do structure fire, right? So if the fire department is structure fire, we're wildland fire. So all of our equipment, and we're trying to put an equipment day together. We used to do this before COVID, but it kind of ended during that time. We have legislators come out and drive any of the equipment that they want to. Our grass rigs, our 6x6s, which get through the woods, our dozers that put in fire line, all of that you can see from our forest fire experiment station in Roscommon. So we have to manage both public and private land, and we have a lot of partnerships with local fire departments as well. And one thing I want to say about the firefighters is we are one of the top in the nation when it comes to helping other states. People love Michigan's equipment. We build our own equipment from scratch at the Forest Fire Experiment Station. And so that when they ask for help, they ask for Michigan firefighters and our equipment to go. So a lot of states, they just send people. When they ask Michigan, they want us and our equipment. And we did put ourselves out there for the California fires, in case you're wondering about that, but they wanted Type 1 engines, which are structure engines. We have Type 3 and 4 engines, so we haven't been called there yet, but we offered. All right, museums. This is what I talked about. We had this merged into DNR in 2009. 500,000 people visit the history centers, 12 museums across the state, and then 45,000 school children come through school programs as well. And then in addition to the museums, we have the historical marker program. So if you ever see those markers of what it says that historically was there, that's what our folks do at the History Center, and then Heritage Trails and Michigan Freedom Trail, which is part of the trail through, I think it goes through Detroit and then into Canada, some of the abolition of slavery folks that were provided a way out into Canada. So that is managed also by us. And then nearly 1 million people a year visit Mackinac State Historic Parks, and that's a big one. Another heavily visited park as well, and the Straits of Mackinac. All right, trails. I heard somebody talk about trails as well. Over 13,000 miles of trails. Some have multiple uses. In the summer, they might be ORV. In the winter, they might be snowmobile. And then we have 4,000 miles of ORV and motorcycle trails. If you ever want to get an app, we have an app for that we work through some of the partner organizations. It's not our app, but some of the producers of these machines have apps that put all of our trails on them. And then we have over 6,000 miles of snowmobile trails, 6,000 miles of hiking and biking, 800 plus miles of equestrian, and then we have water trails now. That's one of our newest trail systems that we've provided for folks, maps that people can kayak through. And then we lead the nation in rail trail miles. So those are railroads that were turned into trail systems. And then the Iron Bell Trail passes now through 48 counties. We've been working on that for a really long time. For those of you that know, when we started that, we have acquired so many pieces since that started. So I'm in my 28th year here in the department, and I have seen this grow exponentially. At first, it seemed like a big task to get that connectivity all the way through, but we're almost there. So that's good news. All right. I think that's it for me. You have a couple highlights too of other really big projects we're working on, like the Arctic grayling and some of those things. If you have questions, we'd be willing to answer.
Thank you. A few people do want to ask questions. We're not going to get in depth today because we don't have a policy in front of us to be asking specifics. So we don't want to get in the weeds. We also want to be respective of Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy next. So I think Representative Fairbairn, you have?
Yeah, just real briefly, the wildlife and fisheries part of the budget with the licenses. I was wondering what % of that goes to wildlife and then what % goes to fisheries, kind of that split there, if you know offhand.
It's not an even split, I will tell you that, and there are other parts of the department so fisheries and wildlife get the bulk of it, but then obviously our license system, which is in our finance division, gets some because we have to run the license systems, we have to buy the tags, all that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of game and fish money in each division that supports those divisions. So we can get that breakdown for you for sure if you want to see it. It's I don't know, Randy, do you know offhand your % of game and fish?
Yeah, it's about 55 to 60% of a fishing license sales comes back directly to managed fisheries.
Yeah. So a lot of people wonder why, we can't do more, maybe fish stocking or whatever. Well, not 100% of the fishing license goes just to fish. So that's a good question.
Representative McFall.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here and explaining a lot of this. I was on this committee last session, so I'm very interested in a lot of the things that you guys do. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to help promote like hunting and fishing in the state? Because I'm under the impression that hunting is kind of like going by the wayside for a lot of people. Because even in my community, they used to have hunting classes, license classes, and those are no longer held at our library just because of a lack of interest. So I'd be curious to know what it is you guys are doing to help promote those.
Sure, and that marketing piece is one of the other places that some of our game and fish money goes to. We actually have the Wildlife Council in Michigan that was created, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, and $1 from our license sales goes into that. And so there's a group that's appointed, and they work on basically all of that hunting and fishing side of the equation, mostly so that we educate people about conservation first, habitat and then try to get them into hunting and fishing. Usually fishing first, because that's a good way to hook them, and then into hunting. So we have a lot of also email lists that people subscribe to. We do have the hunter safety list that people subscribe to. But I will say the Wildlife Council is actually a big deal. I went to the Legislative Sportsman Caucus meeting last year because they wanted to hear from Michigan. We actually went up a little bit in our license numbers in the last 5 years on an average. Some of that's due to COVID, but many states kept going down. And we and Colorado are the only two states that have the Wildlife Council for promotion. And it shows. I mean, and so the legislators in those other states wanted to know how they can do that in their own state. So we do put there's money associated with it in statute so that we make sure that we're promoting it.
Thank you. We're going to take a couple more. We do have to be respectful of time here. Representative Vanderwall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a real quick question. Where are we sitting on conservation officers, and what is the long-term replenishment plan?
Thank you for that. We're at what we want to have is about 250 officers in the field. Every year we have retirements or folks that transfer out to either local communities or state police. One of the reasons is we don't have pension anymore, and so they'll get, I call it, stolen by a county because they can offer those benefits still and state police. So we have a current academy right now with 22 officers in it. Down to 17, darn it. So we tried to start with 22, but we run in a full academy every other year to try and keep that number where we have at least 1 or 2 per county. And then we also have a hybrid academy now that we started a couple years ago on the off years, where we take about 10 to 12 folks that are from other agencies and they can come into DNR in a lot less time. It's a 10-week academy instead of a 28-week academy. So we're trying. If you remember last year, we were able to get that little bump in pay for conservation officers. That really helped us with recruitment. Before that, the 4 or 5 years before that, we were down to under 200, I think, people applying for our academies. When I started, 28 years ago, it was almost 2,000 people for every time we had an academy, and we were below 200, which was pretty bad. When that went through, and thank you to folks who worked on that, we had about 1,200 applicants last year, so that's good for us.
And we'll go to Representative Wirtz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was recently told that we have 815,317 boat registrations that happened. That was as of 2023 in Michigan. Is any of that registration funding going to DNR directly?
Yes, we get a chunk of that's called waterways money, and one of the things that we're talking about in this current budget is changing some of those, like pontoon boats. I think registration is still like $20, and a lot of those boats now are tri-tunes, and they do skiing and tubing and all those things. So that's one thing that we're trying to help in the conversation with the Michigan Boating Association. They feel the same way about that. So we get a small percentage of that. I think it's like 3% maybe, but we want to make sure that if they change the registration amount, that we would still be able to at least get a percentage of that.
And for our final question for DNR, we'll go to Representative Preston.
Thank you, Chair. Wouldn't be a DNR meeting if a Uper didn't bring up wolves. I was up in the UPSA meeting up in Marquette during the UP 200. Director Bone was there. He discussed an intention on the department's part to have a 9-month turnaround on the wolves if they are delisted. Just wanted to maybe get it on the record here that is the case.
Yeah, I actually went to the one of the other sportsman meetings for legislators throughout the country, and one of the congressmen were there from the West, and it's a big deal out West, right? So they're waiting for the act of Congress to come through. We had 3 main things the department needed before we could do the hunt. One was the legal change in wolf status, so it comes back to the states for management instead of the feds. our wolf plan redone, which being redone, which we did last year. We revised that. And then tribal consultation. So once, if Congress gets that through, we would start, we've done 2 of the 3, so we would do tribal consultation. And then we have to update our monitoring and survey results, which we do every year with the feds anyway. We've hit our recovery goal since the year 2000.
I would just encourage it because we're seeing, you know, we've got UP wolves that have been taken in Manitoba. We've got wolves that have been taken in southern Minnesota on the Iowa border. Just had a wolf taken in lower Michigan. So their range is spreading. The numbers in the UP, you know, based on everything that I see, I live on 200 acres right next to Forest Island. And, you know, the wolves are definitely increasing in the UP. So we need some help there. Another question I have is there going to be a renewed push to change the passport, the recreation passport, to an opt-out instead of an opt-in. The opt-out, I just think, is a very disingenuous way to try to capture additional revenues from people that may not know that they're actually even purchasing a rec passport. If you could explain on that.
Yeah, it's in the current exec rec. We've worked with Secretary of State to see if there's an easy way, click on and off, so that they don't so that it's not a burden to them. Same thing with veterans discounts that we'd like to do. So if we do the opt-out, that would hopefully provide us a little more money to be able to allow veterans to come in for free. That was something that the governor pushed last year, and we'd really like to do that. So we're still working with the Secretary of State to see if it's possible.
Again, I'm just concerned about the people that don't know they need to opt out and end up paying for something that they never even use. So.
Yeah, we do put a flyer in there if you get through the mail. Some people go online and there's a statement there about what they get for that. And then there is a flyer in the mailing, which Secretary of State doesn't always like for us to put in there because it costs more for them to do that. But we want to make sure people know what they're getting. So we did work on language with them to say this covers entry into 103 state parks and this many harbors, this many boat launches.
And then my final question was just about the hunting and fishing license increases. There was a disproportionate increase for the seniors. Last session, the rationale for that was there was a disproportionate use of the resource by the group. Are we continuing to hold the line that the seniors need to pay more as a proportion across the rest of the demographics?
Well, the reason that was picked is we looked at all the surrounding states, and I think the highest senior discount is 20%. So ours is pretty steep, and it's not just because it wasn't based on the number of people in that group. It was based on what the Midwest states are doing. We really try to be right in the middle of that. We don't want to be on the high end. We don't really want to be on the low end. So we were trying to find a middle ground there. And, it doesn't need to stay at that. It's, what you all decide, but that
wasn't the rationale given at the committee meeting, though. The rationale was that there was a disproportionate overuse by that demographic. So I guess I'm just trying to rinse it across those two perspectives that you just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a true statement. There is a huge group, but we talked about the number of hunters going down every year. We're losing a lot of that group too in 70s and 80s year range. So they're really aging out at this point, but they do have a large portion of when you look at the bell curve right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can look at those things when they come up as a policy in front of the committee. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. To move right along, we have from the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, we have Department Director Phil Roos and Legislative Liaison Sydney Hart.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
Try to give you as much time as we can here.
Yeah,
half an
okay,
hour.
I'll do that speed drill here.
I don't want to rush you just because we took more time last time.
Thanks to the chair and the vice chairs and all the committee members for inviting us to be here. It's a real honor, and look forward to giving you an overview of EGLE, Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. This is Sydney Hart, who is our legislative liaison. She'll keep me honest here. And I'm Phil Roos. I've been director of the department since July 2023. I thought I'd give you 2 minutes of background on me, because I thought it was really helpful, the sharing that everybody did here. It's good to remember the shared values we have as Michiganders, and that's not the connection to wildlife and environment is very different here than in a lot of other states. I'm a 7th generation Michigander. I have roots all over the state, but I grew up in your district, Mr. Chair, in Flint and Grand Blanc, and so I really appreciated the work you've done there in establishing the state park, and I appreciated all of the stories and personal commitments that others have had. And one of the things that hit me is something I was going to share just about our philosophy, is there was a lot of taking appreciation for the outdoors and the environment, but also connecting that to economic growth, to jobs, to having a thriving state. And that's something that's really important to me. That's a philosophy we're really following here. I have a background as, prior to coming here, I was in the private sector my entire career in a variety of, as an entrepreneur, also worked for some larger companies, mostly in the consumer products and management consulting business. So that's the business side of me. And then I spent the last 15 years really active in environmental and health issues and leadership roles in a number of different organizations. And I've never really bought into the false dichotomy between those two. And so it was heartening for me to hear some like-minded people on that score. We should be able to do both, protect our environment and create jobs and help our communities to thrive. So a little bit about Eagle, just start with the basic thing. We're talk about the mission here. We're at the heart of addressing the environmental challenges that impact the health, livelihood, and way of life of all 10 million Michiganders. That's our starting point here. And I'm really proud to serve with our team of more than 1,500 scientists, environmental experts, engineers, who are really on the front lines every day doing some really difficult work, protecting our environment and protecting the public health of our citizens. And they're out there doing their part to make something that we have enshrined to kind of in our the way we talk about the agency's work, to make this the best state to live, work, and play in the country. And I'm just really proud to serve with them and appreciate all their experience and resilience and commitment to the cause. The core of our mission is environmental protection and public health, and we have a regulatory part of our work that helps make sure we keep the air clean, water clean to drink and swim in, and so forth. We also, I think one of the things that was kind of obvious to me in my first days in this job, and I'm going around the state, was, though it's not in our mission, the work that we do is pretty fundamental to the state thriving and to communities thriving. And that's catalyzed by the fact that the role that we play in economic development and in helping communities thrive is catalyzed in part because more than 50% of our budget comes in the form of grants that go right back out to communities. And they go to things like upgrades in water infrastructure plants, so communities that have 50, 100-year-old infrastructure, so that it doesn't fall apart, so that everybody is able to enjoy the right to clean drinking water that's also affordable and accessible. And that alone has supported about 75,000 jobs, just the water infrastructure work alone in the last 5 years. And also things like brownfield redevelopment. Rep. Foreman, I live in Ann Arbor now, and we've seen each other before, congrats, can speak to the importance of brownfields and the economic impact they have. And I love that and take that as a statement of principle that if we do our job protecting the public, protecting the environment and public health, there will always be a positive connection to the economic viability of our state and, for that matter, our way of life and enjoying the natural resources of our state. Our team works side by side with partners at all levels of government, state, federal, local, and in achieving our kind of shared mission here. And what I want to do is give you the 40,000-foot view of how this agency is organized. It's a little bit complicated, but we've got a year and a half into it, I finally sort of know it. We're broken into three broad categories. We have what we would call program divisions that have regulatory or grant programs that they're working on that are focused on particular areas, air, land, water, those kinds of things. Then we have some divisions that are really support divisions, finance, environment, various other support within the organization, information management, those kinds of things. And then we also have 6 offices, and they are the Office of Public Information, the Office of Climate and Energy, Office of Environmental Justice Public Advocate, Office of the Great Lakes, Office of Legislative Affairs, and the Office of Clean Water Public Advocate. And they play a bit more of a frontline role in a lot of communication and education within the community and some policy making. And then finally, we have the Michigan PFAS Action Response Team, otherwise known as MPART. That is an agency that's housed within EGLE, but it's actually a coordinating office for 7 agencies within state government, so that if we have a PFAS contamination event, they get all the right people involved to do the testing and the sampling and decide what remediation is needed, and then put it into action. So that's the overview, and I'll just touch on these also in the interest of time. I could go on for an hour on each one of these, but I'll just touch on each of those areas, the divisions and the offices. Our air quality division, the staff in that division work to reduce existing outdoor air pollution and prevent deterioration of air quality through a variety of activities. They monitor air quality across the state. They inspect different sources of air pollutants to see what the issue is and what needs to be done. They review applications and issue permits. They create and they implement plans to reduce pollutant emissions. If we have an area where we're above limits or at an unacceptable level of air pollution, they come up with a plan working with stakeholders for how to address that. And then they respond to citizens' concerns. This is an area where, like all of our divisions, but I think air quality in particular, there's a lot of engagement with both regulated parties and with citizens and communities. They receive and analyze over 1,700 emissions reports, complete over 500 permit actions each year. They oversee over 200 air quality monitors across the state, and they complete over 4,500 facility and asbestos inspections. And something recent that we're really proud of that the Air Quality Division launched is what they call our My Enviro portal. So that's a central, all-digital portal for all information related to permits and related activities. And it's part of a broader effort to increase transparency of the agency, to digitize everything we do so that we can work more efficiently. And also so that we can speed up permitting times. It's part of a much broader permitting streamlining effort that we've got going on that involves process improvements and changes in staffing and a variety of other things. But digitization and making ourselves more accessible so people don't have to do FOIAs. They can just go and see where things are at and what's happening. Make everybody part of the work that we do. The Water Resources Division is all about protecting and monitoring Michigan's waters, and Shannon shared all the numbers on the quantity of waters that we're dealing with. This is a highly complex division because of all the water territory, including groundwater, that they're working with, and we are blessed to have among the most abundant resources in the nation. They establish water quality standards. How do we know if this is swimmable, fishable, or okay to go into a drinking water plant ultimately? They regulate discharge of industrial and municipal wastewaters through permits and inspections. They monitor water quality and the health of aquatic communities. They regulate wetland resources and restoration. And they regulate lakes and streams to make sure that the water quality is where it needs to be there, as well as monitoring water withdrawals to make sure we're not depleting reservoirs or aquifers. They process permit applications. They provide technical assistance to local soil erosion and sedimentary control programs. as well as a range of other activities, dredging and filling, constructing or dismantling dams, constructing marinas, seawalls, and docks, building in a critical sand dune area, wetland or floodplain, and protecting underwater shipwreck resources. And they also oversee and issue all the construction permits for wastewater treatment, water structure, and stormwater treatment, water infrastructure through the NPDES permitting program. And there's a pretty remarkable, if you look over the last 20 years or so at the number of discharges through storms, even though we've got more severe weather, if you look at the level of pollution that is in our Great Lakes, I would say the major thing that has caused reductions to those is the work of the NPDES programs and protecting, making sure that we monitor and regulate the amount of the effluent that goes back into the water. Just some numbers, as of 2024, 8,300 permits were issued, 99% of permits were approved. It may not seem like that, but most permits do go through. There are some where there's a different plan that's worked out and maybe a permit doesn't happen, but actually the lion's share of them go through, and they're protective, but also an effort to really make them as reasonable as possible given the situation. We have 750 sites on Michigan's lakes, streams, rivers, wetlands, and Great Lakes that were assessed, and 51 wetland mitigation banks were approved. So we have had no net loss of net wetlands in this state over the last year. Drinking Water and Environmental Health Division. They're all about ensuring compliance with safe drinking water standards through a variety of methods. They oversee Michigan's 11,000 public water supplies. They protect the source water that goes into those suppliers. They regulate water well construction. They manage on-site wastewater program. And they weirdly license swimming pools and campgrounds. That's an artifact of some weird combinations of different departments of state government years before my time. To do all of that, they approve and license, I covered that. I'll just give you sort of the numbers on this. As of 2024, over 10,000 community and non-community water supplies were overseen. Over 7,000 licensed campgrounds and pools were permitted, and 250,000 public water supply samples were reviewed. The drinking water area has been probably one of our most under-resourced divisions, and it's actually the most fundamental to human life. And we've experienced in our state some real challenges in Flint and Benton Harbor and really across the state, communities big and small. And I will never declare victory on this. We never should. But I will say that there's been enormous progress over the last several years, most of it that I had nothing to do with, that's made a real difference. I think we can say, at least qualitatively, we have some of the best drinking water, the highest quality drinking water in the country, and we're lucky to have the best sources of that if we continue to protect it through the work on the wastewater, on the water resources side of it. There's still a lot of work to do, but we continue to prioritize getting lead out of the water, the things that have the most fundamental potential impact on citizens. And if you look across our state where we have invested in water infrastructure on drinking water as well as on the resource side, it's everywhere in our state where people live. Communities big and small, rural and urban. And it's just a fight we got to continue to do to keep people safe. Materials Management Division. They ensure responsible management of waste streams and support sustainable practices by overseeing solid and hazardous waste disposal, developing strategies for recycling, coordinating our state's radiological protection program, and investing in community energy resources. In the radiological area, that's not something that a lot of people don't know that's part of EGLE, but they do the coordination with nuclear power plants and local emergency responders and the federal government to ensure we are able to respond to a nuclear emergency. And they do all sorts of exercises. There was one done recently here to make sure that we work together with our other departments of state government as well as the federal government to do that. They also lead our efforts in using cleaner fuels, expanding the use of renewable energy, helping communities become more resilient to climate and weather change, and all other steps related to our My Healthy Climate plan. 38,000 waste producers and disposal facilities were regulated in the past year. 187 grants to foster recycling, market development, energy-related activities. 1.8 million tons of waste materials were diverted from Michigan landfills. That's an area I have a lot of heart about, is to try to manage our landfill space responsibly, try to not be in a position where we're having to build a lot of new landfills because we get a disproportionate number of the incoming issues that come into our agents here in that area. So that's MMD, as we call it. Remediation and Redevelopment Division. This protects Michigan's land and public health by supporting cleanup of contaminated sites, overseeing closure and removal of leaking underground storage tanks, managing the Brownfield Redevelopment Program, and partnering with federal agencies on Superfund sites. So there's two main cleanup programs that we have. We have that we call it the Part 201, sort of the core environmental cleanup program. These are sites that there may not be a responsible party anymore. Business that caused the contamination may have gone out of business, and suddenly the state is the responsible party. So we clean those sites up, or at least address them so they're protective of public health. And then we have underground storage tank program. And we have those all over the state. We're talking about 26,000 contaminated sites in the state in that first category, the Part 201 sites. And then we also have a number on top of that of the leaking underground storage tanks. Happy to say this is an area we've made a lot of progress on in the last 2 or 3 years. We've set some stretch goals for our department, and we've dramatically, depending on how you do the accounting, between doubling and tripling the number of contaminated sites we clean up in a year. And we've done it through process improvements, through digitization of records that makes it easier to do research on these sites, and a variety of other things. We've given 400 plus grants through our Brownfield Redevelopment Program that have provided $7 billion in private investment and 34,000 jobs supported by that. In my tours around the state, brownfield sites and brownfield redevelopment, cleaning up these sites in general has become a real passion for me, because I've seen it's another point of intersection between environmental and public health protection and jobs and economic activity, and taking blight away from communities. I've seen a number of communities transformed by that. For every dollar in state money that goes into the Brownfield Redevelopment Program, generates on average $45 in private investment. And I don't think there are many programs that have that level of rate of return. And they do that because they de-risk investments that businesses or other entities may have when they're thinking about taking on a site that had once been contaminated. So that's an area that's a major area of focus. Geological Resources Management Division protects our natural resources by regulating the development of fossil fuels and minerals, plugging of abandoned exploration and production wells, and administering large quantity water withdrawal registrations and permitting. They also regulate mines for metallic minerals, industrial sand. They maintain a variety of maps and data on Michigan geology. We have the Michigan Geological Resource. Basically, it's an archive of geological repository, thank you, samples from around the state that regulated parties or others who are trying to figure out whether they're going to explore in an area can have some sense of what they're going to find when they get there. As of 2024, our staff has conducted 24,000 on-site inspections. They've managed 16,000 active wells and issued 75 permits. One of the other big things they do is they plug orphan wells that may be at risk of or actually emitting methane, and so it's a public health as well as an air quality benefit. We then have our Eagle offices.
Mr. Ruth?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt? You covered the offices right at the start. And,
okay.
and I think our policy people have all the support services information.
Okay.
We do have, the board will close at 1:40 across the street. So if we have time for any questions that want to be asked before the committee is over, I just want to make sure we have time to do that.
Yeah, sure, go right ahead. Any questions I can answer?
Okay. Representative
How many offices do you have in the Upper Peninsula? I know there's one in Marquette, and do you know how many employees you have?
You're right, just one office in the Marquette, although we have several people who work from that office who are cover territories around the UP. I don't know. I'm going to just guess it's 75 or 100 in that range. Is that?
We can follow up.
Yeah, we can follow up with the exact number. Yeah, I've been visited that more than I've visited any other office, I think, and I've really learned a lot from the folks up there.
I want to thank you for the time, the information. I know the way the regulatory system works, and you'll probably be seeing and hearing from us quite often.
I'm sure I will. I just wanted to say also, we appreciate the issues that people raise. Everybody has a permitting issue, and don't feel shy about raising those, because that's how we learn these and help keep the system moving forward. So
And I think Representative Johnson got just in under the wire.
Oh.
Thank you. I just had a question about your environmental justice department.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of something you've accomplished, concrete, that we can understand in that department?
Yeah, they're working often in coordination with the other parts, the operating or program divisions within Eagle, to work through, like if there's a permit that's being addressed, they'll understand community concerns and work with the permitting teams to address those. They provide really a kind of a public engagement function as much as anything. There are grants that they've administered that have had impact and a real positive impact on communities. They play an important role in the work that we do, and it's positive and supportive of the program areas.
Again, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do want to leave everybody with a reminder that we'll not have committee on Wednesday, February 26th, since it's the same day as State of the State address. There being no further business for the committee will stand adjourned.
And I want to invite everybody tomorrow. We're having an Eagle 101 open house at Con Hall. What time? We're having it here, actually. Oh, we're having it here. Okay. We're having it here. So look forward to seeing some of you then.